Sometimes you just hear about a case that is just so bizarre that all you can say is, "What the fuck?" Yeah, this is definitely one of those.
You are now listening to The Infamous Ones, a true crime podcast hosted by Kay on Spotify. A podcast aimed to uncover and share the stories behind heinous and insane acts that have been overlooked or overshadowed by mainstream media, getting justice for the voices that can't speak.
What's up, y'all? It's your girl Kay, and I am the host of The Infamous Ones, a true crime podcast. A podcast designed to focus on crimes committed in the Black community that you don't hear about in mainstream media, giving a voice to those victims that have otherwise been silenced. So, yeah, y'all, I know it's been like, oh, what, 2 weeks since I gave y'all an episode. My bad on that. It's been a number of things, between work and school and the wedding and all of that. Plus, that last episode was a drainer. But I told y'all despite the feelings of discouragement sometimes and feeling like okay maybe nobody's really listening, the reviews are kind of blah, like when I say blah I mean like non-existent. But I said listen, I got to keep pushing. I am grateful for everybody that hit me up to check on me. I'm doing good. It was a lot, life is life. And so I'm mainly trying to find the balance right now, but I'm getting it worked out. In the words of Miss Seeley from The Color Purple, dear God, I'm here. Okay. I'm here, y'all. I'm okay. I promise. My drink of choice tonight is going to be the double XL guava. Ooh, baby, when I tell you that is good, okay? Oh, and by the way, what happened to y'all telling me y'all's drinks of choice in these comments and in the reviews and everything? Like, well, it's probably because y'all ain't leaving no reviews, but I mean, I see how y'all gonna do me. Like I said, when y'all do leave reviews, let me know what your drink of choice is because, I like to try different stuff. Y'all know I typically drink like my Jack honey or I'll drink my double XL or I'll drink some type of Stella. So, I always want to try a little different, here and there. So make sure y'all let me know what y'all are drinking on. Okay. All right. So if y'all recall, I told you I am not, and I repeat, not doing any more of those 3 hour long episodes. Child, what what the hell was I thinking? Nope. That drained the hell out of me, okay? So y'all gonna get the regular episodes, obviously they're gonna be at least an hour, So y'all just work with me, okay? Because I can't keep doing them long ass episodes. And if I do, then it'll be broken up into pieces. But that last one, that 3 hour joint with, the women of Imperial Avenue, whew. Oh, and speaking of, I know some of you did reach out about the audio for the Women of Imperial episode part two. I know there was an issue with the audio towards the first part of the episode. I have been made aware of that. There was an issue with my microphone blowing out. I'm working on getting another one. So thank you for everybody that, let me know. That does tell me that y'all are listening. I appreciate it. Going forward, I'm checking the audio to make sure because I don't know what the hell caused it to do that. But I said, okay, let me just let me break down and get another microphone. So yeah, don't be surprised if I'm hitting y'all saying, hey, donate to the microphone fund because these joints ain't cheap. Okay. All right. So I hope y'all got y'all popcorn and your wine ready. Y'all know what time it is. Let's get it. This week's case involves Latrese Curtis, the victim, Stephen Randolph, a witness and Latrese's love interest, Darren Curtis, Latrese's husband, LaQuentin Ford, a witness, John Ross, a witness, and the infamous murderer, Robert Reeves. Latrese Montrell Jones was born May 28th, 1986, to Sherman and Cynthia Jones. She was one of four children. She had three brothers, Justin Hammond, Marlon Wheeler, and Jason Jones. And being the only girl, Latrese was spoiled rotten. Now, okay, I kind of want to clarify on something. It says that she had a sister named Shania Jones, but her relatives described her as the only girl in a lot of the documents that I read and in the documentaries that I saw. So I don't know if Shania was like a play sister or maybe a stepsister. I don't know, but she was definitely mentioned in the obituary as her sister. Anyway, so Latrice's father, Sherman, he said that, she got to do stuff that not a lot of the other people could do because she was the only girl. And Latrice was very much a daddy's girl. She was a go-getter. Like, oh, that is so sweet. Listen, fathers that treat their daughters like princesses are always amazing to me because they teach their daughters how a man should treat you. And they always say that a daughter's first love is her father. I gotta agree with that. I see a lot of fathers with their daughters and I see how they are with them and the standards that they set. And it's a positive one because it shows your daughter, like, okay, hey, this is the kind of thing that a man is supposed to do for you. These are the kind of things that you're not supposed to accept from a man. Of course, nobody's perfect, but, I definitely love when I see fathers doting on their daughters and spoiling their daughters and everything the same way that a mother would do her son. So Latrice is described as very humble, very encouraging. She always had a smile on her face. And I personally would like to add that Latrice was gorgeous. I mean, simply beautiful. Like, I was kind of looking through her pictures, and she definitely did not have a problem getting a man because Sister Girl was gorgeous. Okay. Pretty smile, pretty eyes. She could dress. All the boys used to hit on her, which I mean, really isn't surprising to me, but I know her big brothers was on their ass. Like, y'all know how these big brothers be when it come to their little sisters. They in protective mode and all of that. But, Latrice was either oblivious to it or she just didn't give a damn. She out there living her best life. And the guys were just like, well, I mean, if Latrice cool with it, fuck her brothers. We gonna try to get at her. Not to say she was out there like that or whatever, but she was very attractive and knew how to, get attention. She did. So Latrice was doing her thing. She was the popular girl. After she graduated high school, she enrolled in Bennett College. And by the way, shout out to Bennett College, y'all. That's my alum. That's where I graduated from. Okay, so this is probably the most that you will ever hear me talk about my life outside of this podcast. But for those that don't know, Bennett College is an all girl HBCU in North Carolina. They are the sister school to Morehouse College, which is in Atlanta, Georgia. Now, a lot of people think Spelman is the only HBCU all female college, but no, just because they are across the street does not make them brother and sister. Okay. There is another all female HBCU, and that's Bennett College in North Carolina. And like I said, it's the sister school to Morehouse. Also, a little known Black history fact, Bennett College was once actually a co ed institution that was originally founded to educate freed Black men and women. And like I said before, it's one of two all female HBCUs in the country, sister institution of Morehouse College, which is the nation's only all male HBCU. So, that was your little known Black history fact for the day. And like I said, shout out to Bennett College, my beautiful, beautiful alum. But anyway, so Latrice attended Bennett College for a while, and unfortunately, she didn't necessarily take to the school too much. So she ended up transferring to Wake County Technical Community College in Raleigh, North Carolina. And there she kind of she continued for a while until she ended up getting an acceptance letter to North Carolina Central University. But she did have to finish out her semester at Wake County Tech, which, it really didn't take her long because while she was doing that, she did end up meeting the man that she was going to fall in love with. See, she met a man named Darren Curtis. Darren Lee Curtis was born February 16th, 1981. He was an accounting major at North Carolina Central University and a military man. Bro was in the Army National Guard, where he actually served a tour in Iraq in 2004 and looked damn good in the uniform, might I add. Now, when his tour was up, he decided, all right, I think it's time for me to leave the military and just go and get my education. I mean, why not? Shit, take full advantage of it because that's what the military does. They pay you for your education. So, or rather, they don't pay you for it, but they pay for your education. So, with him being at school, that's when he meets Latrice. They started hanging out, and y'all know how these college romances are. You meet and exchange numbers. Somebody gets invited to the crib or to the dorm. Y'all kicking it, get seen at the quad a couple of times together in the morning. After that, late night booty call, and y'all roll into the quad for breakfast, with your flip flops and your slides and the oversized sweatshirt or t shirt, whatever. Oh, it was just me? Oh, okay. But y'all know how that go. You get seen together, you end up in a situation. It's never really a situation where you sit there and say, "Okay, hey, will you be my girlfriend? Will you be my boyfriend? Are you ready for a relationship?" Especially in college? Nah. Like after y'all, smash and it's like, "All right, we go together." That's it. That's just what it is. It's never like a conversation about it. And quite honestly, it's some adult relationships like that too. Okay. But with Darren and Latrice, it didn't take them long to establish a relationship. Like they met in the fall of 2006. And I mean, your girl was falling hard. Okay. Love at first sight. She was taking him to meet her family. And remember, she got all these brothers and her daddy. But Darren wasn't scared. He ain't had no problem meeting them. He was like, listen, baby, I fought in Iraq. I ain't scared of your damn daddy. So Latrice was like, all right. She takes him home and she tells her family, like, listen, I want to introduce y'all to my man, my man, my man. Okay. I love me some him. And her older brothers are being the, protective big brothers, like, nigga, who the fuck are you? They on some Mike Lowry when he met Reggie in Bad Boys too. Like, who the fuck you is? I don't know if you good enough for my sister. But Darren wasn't worried. He wasn't scared. He let it be known, look, Latrice is my woman. This gonna be my wife one day. And eventually the family realizes, like, okay, he's a really good dude. Like he really loves her. And it was true. Darren was feeling her just as much as she was feeling him. He was telling everybody that, Latrice was his boo, how he had him a baddie. He was trying to wife her because he was going to be damned if anybody else had her. Not on no crazy shit or nothing like that, but just not wanting her to not wanting her to slip through his fingers. You know what I'm saying? So Darren proposed to Latrice with this beautiful ring and she's all gushy and stuff like, "Oh my god, my man want to marry me." She's like, "Hell yeah, baby, give me that rock, give me the ring." I know that's right. So, at 20 years old, on April 27th, 2007, Latrice and Darren were married, and she officially becomes Latrice Curtis. So after they got married, they get their own little apartment in Raleigh. And Latrice ended up transferring to North Carolina Central University with her man. She's obtaining her bachelor's degree in business administration. Excuse me. That's that double XL talking. And he was still majoring in accounting. Latrice is happy. She's going to class every day. She's got her part time job at Sears. She's doing her thing. But remember, y'all, she's young as hell. Like, this isn't some chick that's been with her man for years and years. Like, she's 20. So by the fall, I don't know if it was a situation where maybe she just felt like she wasn't happy with Darren or if she was just like horny, he wasn't satisfying her. I don't know. But unbeknownst to Darren, Latrice happens to cross paths with Stephen Randolph. Stephen Randolph was born in Baltimore, Maryland. Now, unfortunately, I couldn't find a lot of his background information, but I do know that he moved from Baltimore, Maryland to Lillington, North Carolina, because that's where he attended West Harnett High School. And once he graduated, he enrolled at North Carolina Central University. And Stephen was also Mr. Popular, more so with the ladies. Like he was a ladies' man. Okay. Stephen is about 6'2", very attractive, a nice little piece of yum yum mocha chocolate. I know that sounds crazy, but yeah. Anyway, he was studying management at Central and pretty much was just like that guy on the campus. And it didn't help that he was a guard for the basketball team. So it doesn't exactly say how they crossed paths, but I can only imagine it's probably at some basketball game or something, or maybe they shared a class together. Who knows? But in the fall of 2007, Latrese and Steven officially meet, and instantly, they getting close with each other. Latrese is falling for Steven hard. Now, here's the thing. Latrice told Steven what was up with her. She let him know, like, hey, I got a husband, I'm married, but I'm separated. And Steve is like, oh, well, shit, baby. That's what's up. It's cool because I got a girlfriend. Yeah. Despite the fact that he and Latrice had started kicking it, both of them had another relationship going on outside of what they were doing. See, Steven was also seeing this girl named Velma Newton. Now, I guess she was like the main girl, so, she got the status of being with the basketball player, but I mean, come on, it's a HBCU. Especially when you dating a star athlete, hoes is coming out the woodwork. Bitches can't wait to tell a chick that they had her man. I remember being in college and dating a football player, and I was a virgin. Oh, bitches could not hesitate to tell me that they had fucked my dude, and I was just like, oh, well, he loves me. He's in a relationship with me. He just fucking y'all. I sounded so stupid. Anyway, sorry, had a flashback. But it wasn't like Steven was being just faithful to, Velma and Latrice. Like he was fucking a plethora of women. Like homie was slanging that meat all over Central's campus. But again, Latrice wasn't tripping because she had her man. She had her husband. She had the best of both worlds. And I'm kind of like, okay, clearly once he told you that he had a girlfriend, you could have just kept it a band with him. You didn't have to keep up the lie that you were separated. Like clearly you being married didn't bother him, but I guess, like but if everything was all hunky dory between the two of them and they both knew about each other's situations, how did Latrice end up dead? Simple. All because of jealousy. But not from who you would think or how you would think. See, with Steve being on the basketball team at Central, he was well known. He would go to parties and hang out with different people. And one of the times that he was hanging out, he met a man named Robert Reeves. Robert Lee Adam Reeves was born December 29th, 1964. All right, pause. Okay. Let me tell y'all, buckle up. Okay. Because this is about to be one hell of a ride with this crazy shit here. If y'all have not poured y'all a glass already, do it now. Because, baby, when I tell you, this is the part where you're going to be like, what the fuck? All right. So let me tell y'all about little Mr. Robert Reeves. Like I said, he was born December 29th, 1964. Robert was a pastor. Yes, you heard me correctly, a pastor. Now, I wasn't able to find out much about his family background, but I was able to see that he had a sister by the name of Willie Mae Thorpe, and she went by Poochie. Ooh, good Lord, that's a name. Willie Mae, aka Poochie. Willie Mae, it sounds like she makes some of the best collard greens and cornbread at the juke joint. I'm saying, like, oh shit. I'm sorry, y'all. God is working on me. Anywho, so around the time that Robert met Stephen, he had been a pastor for like 20 years. But Pastor Reeves kind of had a little bit of history. Okay. See, he started his preaching career at Pleasant Hill Baptist Church near Bennettsville, South Carolina in the mid 1980s, but he ended up leaving the church in 1987 because he gets accused of criminal sexual conduct with a boy at the church. Yup. Your boy is a booty bandit. And it ain't nothing wrong with a booty bandit. Be clear, I am not hating on the LBGTQ community because the difference between them and Robert is they aren't trying to sway those that aren't or attacking anyone. Robert was trying to get boys that didn't get down like that. Now, at the time that he was a head pastor, once he got accused, naturally, they removed him from his position. Now, this was according to Pastor Earl Platt, who took over. And Earl was the one that, kind of let the cops know everything that was going on. So Robert was charged with criminal sexual conduct in 1987 in Marlborough County, South Carolina, and he was actually convicted of third degree sex charges in 1988. So he did some time for his crime. After he gets out, Robert is like, "All right, it's time for me to start over. It's time for me to get my life back. I'm giving my life to God again." Well, one would think anyway. So he ends up moving to New York City and he starts pastoring at Cedar of Lebanon Baptist Church in Brooklyn, New York. He was there for a good minute and he presided over the church from 1997 to the year 2000. But then another situation happened once again where charges were filed in 2002. Only thing is, they didn't have enough to convict, so they ended up getting it dropped. But while he was there, he had a little situation happen. See, karma came for a visit. I don't know if he had been doing some sneak shit or what, but he ended up getting mugged in New York and stabbed in his left arm. And when he got stabbed, it kind of like left him halfway paralyzed. So, needless to say, he got the fuck up out of New York quick. His church members, like his cousin Levon Evans, said that, he was a real energetic person. He was a go getter. He could preach the word to anyone. So after he left the church in Brooklyn, he ended up moving to Raleigh, North Carolina. He started being a pastor at a church in Durham. Now, once he moved to North Carolina, things were going okay. But in 2005, he got hemmed up for writing bad checks. And on September 15th, 2005, he was sentenced to probation for, the class one misdemeanor and went on about his business, like shit was sweet. From there, he kind of chilled out for a little bit. And in July of 2006, he gets a job working at Occam Development Group in Cary, North Carolina, as a clinical research associate. So he worked there from July of 2006 to January 2007. And then he gets in trouble again. This time, it's for unauthorized purchases on the company credit card that was well over $6,000. $6,412.95 to be exact. So when the company found out, that nigga naturally got fired. And they also filed a lawsuit against him in August of 2007. Like they were playing no games. They were like, look, you going to pay us back this money plus some. So they filed the lawsuit. And in November, Superior Court Judge Donald Stevens, remember that name, ordered Robert to pay his former employer $19,069.24. It was the cost of what he had spent plus interest, attorney fees, and $10,000 in punitive damages. I'm telling y'all, it costs to do some stupid shit, okay? Play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. So he got to pay all this money back. But even though he's doing all of that, he ends up moving into this house on Birchcrest Court in Durham, North Carolina with his sister, Willie Mae, aka Poochie. I'm gonna just call her Poochie for the remainder of the episode because that Willie Mae, every time I hear Willie Mae, I swear she got that big back arm when she make that bomb ass potato salad. I'm just saying. I'm sorry, y'all. Okay, but I'm back. But the house that they moved into was like this four-bedroom house that was real pretty in this little cul-de-sac in the Woodcroft neighborhood. It was four bedrooms, three baths, and it had a huge basement and all of that. So Poochie was in one of the rooms upstairs and Robert was in another. And of course, rent got to be paid. Not to mention, this motherfucker got to pay all this money in restitution for the job that he basically robbed blind. So while he's out one day kicking it in the mall in 2007, he crosses paths with Stephen Randolph again. See, Steve would frequent South Point Mall and he had seen Robert's old ass there before. Now, Robert was coming to the mall and he had told Steve that he was a clinical research associate. And, Steve, even though he's this big basketball player and, all of that, his money kind of funny. When Robert met him, he asked him what he did for a living, and Steve was honest. He was like, I don't really got a job like that right now. My money a little unstable. And a lot of times when you play basketball, especially for colleges, you really don't have a lot of time for work like that because you got practices, you got games, you got classes, all of that. And so Steven was very honest with him and was like, "Yeah, I'm trying to find a better place to stay. My living situation ain't really what it's supposed to be." So Robert sees this as his opportunity. He's looking at Steven like, "Damn, this man is fine." And he tells Steven, "I tell you what, I got a four-bedroom house. Now, my sister lived there, but she got her own room. And I got a basement set up like an apartment. So if you want to live there, you can and just pay me $300 a month. Is that cool? $300 a month for my own shit? I get a private entrance, utilities included, and all I got to pay is 300 a month? Shit. I remember paying 900 a month as a college student and struggling. So naturally, Steve agrees and he moves into the spot with Robert and his sister. Now, like I said, it's pretty much laid out for your boy Steven. It's not like he really has to interact with Robert and his sister like that. I'm pretty sure they were cordial, whatever, but there was a separate entrance in the basement. Plus, Robert had an alarm system where each of them had their own code. Poochie had a code, Steve had his own code, and Robert had the master code. So, Steve is happy with his arrangement. He's telling everybody, yo, I got my own spot in my basement apartment. My rent is cheap. And it was kind of a good thing that he was telling people about it because the shit that was about to be going on is a little weird. Like, ultimately, homie was going to need all the witnesses he could get. Okay. But at the time, he's happy because things are looking good for him. So, of course, a few weeks after he moves in, he lets Latrese know, like, hey, baby, guess what? I got my own spot. Yeah, why don't you come through? So Latrese would come over and she and Steve would do what they do, get it in, fuck, whatever. Mm. You know what? I wonder if Velma was ever over there. Like, I mean, after all, she was the girlfriend. So I wonder, did she ever go to the basement apartment? Hmm. Questions that need answers. Anyway, so Steve and Latrice, they fucking around, and Robert, well, he's feeling some type of way. See, sometimes Robert would be there when Steve had Latrice over. And I don't know, maybe he was just like, "Oh, this motherfucker getting pussy." And he's getting jealous. Like, I don't know if that's what it was. Well, honestly, I feel like that's what it was. I don't know if he ever officially met Latrice other than in passing or something. So when Latrice would leave, Robert would take it upon himself and go and talk to Steven. And one day he goes to Steven and he was like, "Say, man, what's up with you and this chick?" And Steve, he's like, "Who, Latrice?" "Oh, yeah, we kind of kicking it, doing what we do, nothing too serious." And Robert's sitting there nodding. He's like, "Oh, okay, because God doesn't approve of premarital sex. It's called a sin." But while we on the subject, have you ever considered being a male escort? Because, you can make a lot of money in that. And Steven is like, "What the fuck?" Robert is on some whole, I'm just trying to help you with your rent situation, man. Now I don't know if Steven actually considered it for a second, but it gave Robert the courage to continue describing how it would go. I told y'all buckle up, okay? So Steven is like, "Nigga, where is all of this coming from?" And Robert, well, I'm just saying, you a good looking guy. You may want to consider that. But, sometimes you might have to let these male clients, you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? It might be some of these guys trying to get at you too. And Steven is sitting there like, this nigga is bugging the fuck out. Listen, ain't no way in the fuck I'm so comfortable with a nigga to just openly express that he should be a male escort. Especially when, bro, we not cool like that. Like, you just my landlord, my guy. Like, what the fuck? I told y'all, buckle up. Okay, I'm sorry, y'all. Okay. Whew. All right, I'm back. So Steve hears this and he's got it in his mind like, yo, this is some crazy shit. And he tells Robert, like, yeah, I don't get down like that. But not taking the hint, Robert presses the issue. He's like, hey, for real, you should really think about it. Now, it's already weird enough, but here's where things get a little bizarre. Okay. Robert tells Steves about this fraternity party that he went to and how they were all alone in this dark room and how he was getting his dick sucked. Oh, but you was just preaching about premarital sex. Okay. But he tells him, yeah, I was getting head and it was good too. And then when the lights came on, I saw it was a dude that was sucking my dick. And he's looking at Steven with this longing look in his eyes. I'm talking about that little twinkle like Damon on Friday after next when he saw Money Mike magically delicious looking ass. And I'm sitting there like, my G, read the room. He is not feeling you like that. But at this point, Robert is invested in this, okay? He's like, yeah, you ain't never had head until you had head from a man. Now, this is where I start to think,
No, you done fucked up, right? No, 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 no. You know you done fucked up, right?
nigga, did you really just tell this man this? That head from a man is so much better. Like, bro, you you are a pastor who was just preaching to him about promiscuity and sins, and now you trying to fuck? Like, bro, you are his landlord. Can we say lawsuit? Harassment? You dummy. You better be glad Steve didn't Kendrick Lamar your ass and wop, 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 wop. Watch me fuck him up. Like, he better than me because they would be picking this nigga up off the floor. Okay. And Steve at this point is like, you know what? It's time to get the fuck up out of here. So he tells him like he got some shit to do or something, and he ends up leaving the house because he's weirded the fuck out. This is a weird ass situation. Now, he wasn't gone long though because he came back like 10 minutes later. I guess he needed to calm down or, try to figure out how to approach the situation. But he let it be known like, bruh, I respect what the fuck you do, but I don't get down like that. I ain't with that shit. Gone with that bullshit. Don't come at me again with that shit. And at this point, Robert's feelings are hurt. He done put his heart out there on the line and, was trying to put other parts out there too, but got rejected. So he's apologetic, I guess. And, he tells Steven, my bad. They squash it. And Steve is thinking that everything is cool. He's like, all right, he done apologized. We gonna debt this shit. We good. But even though Robert said that he was chill on the shit, he was still kind of like dropping little subtle hints at his tenant. Like he would just say some crazy kind of shit in passing. Like, listen, just because you get head from a man, that don't make you gay. It ain't really no difference between a girl and a guy doing it. Um, this nigga makes a wall look smart because I beg to differ. Like, I'm quite certain there is a difference between a man giving head and a woman. Okay? I'm just saying. But then he gets real bold and he tells him, listen, I won't charge you rent if you just try it. Nigga, what? Steven is done at this point. Like, he ain't with the shit, but damn. Like this dude is relentless. And Steven, he's kind of stuck in between a rock and a hard place, no pun intended. But he ain't got no place to go, which is where I'm kind of like, nigga, you such a ladies man. You can't finesse one of these hoes in the stand with them, with the exception of Latrese, of course, because she married. But then again, staying with one of these chicks, kind of limits his availability, I guess, because then he can't move like he does. But Steven is preparing for the worst, so he goes to his cousin and he tells him, "Hey, yo, it's some shit going on where I live. I need to borrow your piece." And his cousin's like, "What's up?" Because that's kind of a strange ass request, my nigga. And Steven tells him what's going on. He was like, "Look, my landlord on some bullshit. This nigga talking about how he think I should be a male escort. This nigga trying to fuck me." And his cousin heard that and was like, "Yeah, big dog, let me go ahead and give you this piece, bruh." So his cousin ends up letting him borrow his 9mm gun. Time is going on, and Steve is being very cautious about how he's moving in the house because he don't know what this dude is capable of. And Robert, he's kind of like still dropping these little hints, but just not as aggressive as before. Now, it's late October 2007, and Steve is kicking it with his girlfriend Velma. One day, she tells Steve about these weird phone calls that she's been getting. Like, somebody has been blowing her phone up, and they're just like telling her they're going to end Steven's basketball career, how they're going to break his legs, just crazy shit. You know what I'm saying? And they're telling her, you need to tell Steve that he needs to stop doing what the fuck he doing. And she's scared. And she tells him, "Baby, I don't know what's going on, but this is a little weird. Somebody talking about they trying to do you harm. Like, you really need to be careful, baby." And Steve is listening to what she has to say. And he tells her about the phone call that he got. See, he got a call from a private number as well. And the caller sounded kind of young. And the caller told him, "I hope you got your gun." Now, after that, Steve actually went looking for his gun that his cousin had loaned him. And then he realized it was missing. Guess who had it? Robert. And when Steve realized this, he was pissed off. Like, he's like, "Nigga, you going in my room looking through my stuff?" But Robert played it off like he just found it. It was like, "Nah, nah, bro, you went looking for that, my nigga. Like, Steven is definitely watching you now. Okay? Like, he's watching Robert's behind. Pause. He's watching Robert, making sure that he don't try nothing stupid. I mean, he's got the gun back, but still, he has to, because despite the fact that Steve has told this man, "Look, bruh, I don't want you. I'm not gay. I'm not with that shit." Despite Robert seeing that Steve is fucking multiple bitches, he's still at it. And it just got to the point that Steve tried not to go home because he's just that uncomfortable. One day, Steve gets a phone call from another one of his friends named Warren Robinson. Now, Warren was somebody that, he had kind of been hanging with, and all of a sudden, her tires get slashed. Hold up, her name is Warren? Okay. Okay. So she let Steve know, "Hey, I don't know what's going on, but somebody done slashed my tires." And then she gets a phone call, and when she checks her voicemail, she hears someone apologizing, telling her, "I slashed your tires. It was me. I'm sorry." And the more that she's listening, she's thinking, "You know what? This sounds like Steven's roommate," which of course pisses Steven off. He knows this nigga did it. And he's right, with his feelings, because how are you supposed to be a man of God and you acting like this, just harassing all of his friends? Well, all of his female friends anyway. So, one particular night on December 11th, 2007, Steve is chilling at the crib and he decides that he's going to go see his girl Velma. So, he gets in the car and he sees that he has a flat tire, but he's able to make it to the gas station where he fixes his flat, and then he heads to his house. But on the way, he starts getting crazy ass phone calls. A private number is calling him, threatening him with this like so called altered voice. "I'ma break your fucking legs. You better have your gun." All kinds of shit. So Steve wasn't feeling it and he was like, "All right, fuck this. I'ma just go back to the crib." But after he gets done hanging out with his girl, he gets in the car to go home. And this time, all four of his tires have been slashed. Like, damn. But you know what? Steven was covered because when you slash all four tires, insurance will cover it. So joke's on you, homeboy, because he gonna get brand new tires. But anyway, so all of his tires are slashed. So somehow Robert ends up calling Steven that night and he uses this lame excuse of, well, somebody's been ringing the doorbell all night. I don't know what's going on, but I don't appreciate it. And Steven is trying to figure out what the fuck he's talking about. Like, he's like, bro, that ain't got shit to do with me. Nigga, my fucking tires are slashed right now. And Robert is just so concerned. Oh, well, if you want, I can have your car towed from your girlfriend's house. Steven knew what was up though. His brain was screaming, "No, leave that shit alone. Something ain't right. Why he want me to come home so bad? I ain't doing that." So he tells Robert, "Nah, I'm cool. I'll be back tomorrow. We can tow it then." So he stays the rest of the night with Velma, and they doing what they do. Next day, Robert arranges to have Steven's car towed, and he even offered to let him drive his car. Like, I could just imagine that he was probably like, "Here you go, take my keys." Like, I know I'm joking around, y'all, but this dude was happy as hell to let that man drive his PT Cruiser. Like, you a whole 40-plus-year-old man crushing on a college student. This shit is just fucking weird. Finesse, to take from someone by elegantly outmaneuvering them. Playing Nia Reynolds is a sure way to play yourself. And Bryson Reynolds learns that the hard way when he's caught cheating on his wife of 5 years. Heartbroken, Nia burns everything Bryson has to the ground. Not literally, but by the time she's finished, Bryson is left to sift through the debris that is now his life. His semi pro football career is ruined. The sports clinic he was building is taken away. And his side chick, hmm, let's just say she falls into a set of perfectly manicured hands that have no issues with making her body quake. You've never seen revenge quite like this before. Find out what happens when a no good man is beaten at his own game in this tantalizing tale, Finessing My Husband's Side Chick by author Sin. Check it out. Available on Amazon. Okay, I promise I'm gonna try to behave, y'all. Okay, so it's getting closer to Christmas, and Steven actually goes home to Baltimore to visit his family. One day, Velma calls him and they're talking, and she's, "Hey, babe, how's it going up in Baltimore?" And he tells her how much fun he's having and all of that, seeing his family. But then she just like blindsides him. She's like, "Hey, I just got like a really weird phone call. Listen to this." See, Velma was smart. She actually recorded the phone conversation. And so she plays it for Steven, and he hears this voice saying the same thing that Warren heard. "I slashed your tires. I'm sorry." And he knows for sure that's Robert's voice. He is outraged and he's trying to, comfort Velma, who is obviously irritated and upset. And he tells her, "Baby, it'll be okay. I'm going to handle it when I get back." But she's got to worry because somebody done slashed her tires. So, when Steven gets back home from the break, he's getting ready to go back into the season and everything. And he wants to confront Robert, but he doesn't have any real proof outside of that voicemail. And the call can't be, traced to Robert. And meanwhile, Latrese is missing her man something bad. Okay. He's been gone to Baltimore all this time. She been at home with the hubby. She's wanting things to get more serious with him, with her and Steven. Robert is still preaching at Cedar International Fellowship in Durham. And, he's spreading the word and all of that. God only knows what else he was trying to spread. But the break is over and school is back in session. Now, while that was going on, while while Steven was gone, Robert had called Brink's security system where he had his alarm system through. So he tells Brinks that he wanted to have it set up where he could see whenever Steve came or left the apartment. Like, if that ain't some stalker shit, I don't know what is. Like, he wanted to make sure that he knew when Steven was coming and going because remember, Steve is in the basement and he has his own entrance. And so he gets this changed and everything, and Steven is none the wiser. On January 29th, 2008, Latrice and Steve end up linking up. she calls Darren and she buys herself some time and she's telling him, "Hey, babe, I'm leaving class late. I'm going to go study and grab a bite to eat." Mind you, it's like 10 o'clock at night when Darren talks to her. But, he's understanding and he tells her, "Okay, babe, well, when do you think you're going to be home?" And she assures him that it'll be just a few hours because she just wanted to study and get something to eat real quick, but that, she would be home after. So Darren, being the loving husband, he's like, "All right, babe, cool, no problem." He goes to sleep, and Latrice ends up heading to see Steven. She goes over to his crib and goes to the basement like she always does, and they getting it in. Now, they have sex, and only this time the condom gets stuck in Latrice. Ladies, have y'all ever had that happen? Like, I had that happen one time, and it took forever to get out. Like, you in there digging and tugging and trying to dig that thing out like it's fucking gold. It's all awkward and shit and funny feeling. I was pushing mine out like I was giving birth. Don't act like it's just me that it's happened to. But anyway, it's late, and at this point, they done gave up on trying to get the condom out. So they're getting dressed and everything. And Latrice is starting to get into her feelings a little bit. And she's telling, Steven, "Baby, I'm really feeling you. Like, I'm feeling this, and I want to see where this can go." And I'm just sitting here like, "Girl, you got a whole ass husband. What do you mean you want to see where this can go? It needs to go away." But it was clear that she's really feeling Steve. He's giving her what she wants. And on a side note, I honestly can't figure out why she started cheating on Darren. Like, that part wasn't really disclosed. Like, I kind of attribute it to her age, maybe because she was barely 21. I don't know. But Latrice expresses her feelings to Steven. And, he's kind of dodging it, telling her, like, "Yo, we'll talk about it later. Come on, let's just go ahead and go." So she leaves to go back home, and Steve leaves to go to Velma's house. Like, he's still planning on going to drop some dick off to her, even though he just dropped some dick to Latrice. So in the early hours on January 30th, 2008, around midnight, Latrice is leaving to go home. But she didn't leave by herself. She left with Steven. Steven left to go to Velma's house, and Latrice is on the phone talking to him while they're both driving to their separate destinations. And she's still pleading to him. And she's like, "Baby, I want to be with you. I want us to be together." And Steven is playing it cool. He knows this shit ain't gonna happen with them. Well, nothing serious like that anyway. But he just tells her, "Baby, we'll figure something out." And so when he gets off the phone with her, he calls his homeboy and he tells him what happened with the whole condom thing and about Latrice wanting to take things to the next level. And his homeboy fucking with him like, "Damn, that's some crazy shit, my nigga." So while this is going on, Robert is getting in his PT Cruiser. And it's late, like I said, it's after midnight, and he decides to get close to Latrice. She's still driving, and Robert is driving along the highway on I 540 as well, near the Lewisburg Road exit. Now, it's not said as to how he gets her to pull over, but she does pull over, and that's when Robert makes his move. He gets her in her car and he just attacks her. He stabs her over and over again. It was later stated that Latrice was stabbed 40 times. Like, that is serious overkill. She had been stabbed in the head, the neck, her chest, and her stomach. Robert gets her body and he drives down the highway a bit before he dumps her. Now, it just so happens that around 1:36 a.m., a state trooper happened to be going past and he sees Robert's PT Cruiser on the side of the highway. Now, it strikes him as a little odd and he's kind of watching. Stephen is still at Velma's house while Robert decides after he's done to, head back to the crib. That same night, Kimberly Parker, who is a friend of Latrice, she gets a phone call. And it's kind of strange because all she hears is footsteps on what sounds like, gravel. So she recognizes the number and she sees her friend, calling her and she's like, "Latrice, hello, Latrice?" And then it just got real quiet. And Kimberly, she's confused. She's like, "Why is she calling me so late at night? Like, that's not like her." Well, she would get her answer a few hours later because around 7:20 a.m. on January 30th, 2008, a few motorists had gone past and they see Latrice's body along the highway right near where Robert's PT Cruiser had been seen. They call 911 and they're like, "Hey, we think a lady may have been hit by a car or something." but she's out here laid out. We don't think she made it. Can you send somebody?" So the cops get out there and they instantly see Latrice was not hit by no car. This woman has been murdered. She's been stabbed multiple times. So they get a tarp and they cover her body and they immediately make the place a crime scene. Meanwhile, Darren is waking up and he looks in the bed and he's noticing like, damn, Latrice still ain't here. And at first he doesn't panic too much because he's like, well, maybe she stayed at her folks' house. But she still would have communicated with him, to some degree. So he calls her cell phone and it goes straight to voicemail. He leaves her a message and he's like, "Hey, babe, I'm just trying to make sure you're all right. Let me know you're good." Then he turns around and he calls her parents and he asks them, he's like, "Hey, sorry to bother, but is Latrice over there with y'all?" And, they tell him, "No, she ain't been here." So immediately, Darren is starting to get worried. He calls 911 before he gets dressed to go to work. But of course, 911 tells him, like, hey, it needs to be 48 hours of her being missing for you to file a police report. So he hangs up, he gets ready to go to work, but his mind is bugged. Like, he's wanting to know where his wife is at. So he gets in his car and he's driving and he's on 540 West and he sees that traffic is like really slowing up more than usual. And as he's driving, he's doing like everybody else, rubbernecking, being nosy. Y'all know we nosy as hell when we see a bunch of flashing lights and cars pulled over. We driving past like, "Ooh, shit, somebody about to go to jail." So, Darren is pretty much doing the same thing when all of a sudden he sees this familiar car and he was like, "Oh my God, that's Latrice's car." So he pulls over and he jumps out. And he's like, "Officers, this is my wife's car. What's going on?" He pulls a picture out and he shows it to them, and, they're a little suspect because they're looking like, "Oh, so you just happen to be in this area?" But he's got a valid excuse because he takes that route every day to go to work. And y'all, he is so scared. He's pleading with them. "What's going on? Where is my wife? I know that's her car." And he sees the tarp that's covering her body. And he's like, "Yo, please tell me that's not my wife underneath that tarp." The cops, they've been out there talking to the motorist that found the body and getting information, but they're asking Darren questions too. Like, he knows something is up because they're asking him what his relationship is like with Latrice and everything. And he tells them how, she went missing the night before, how she never came home after he talked to her. He gives all the information that he can. He tells them, "Listen, I spoke with her last night and she said that she was going to be studying and that she was going to go grab a bite to eat. When she didn't come home, I thought she was at her parents' house, but when I called them this morning, they said she hadn't been there. So I immediately called the cops, but they said that she wasn't missing long enough. Now, will you please tell me if that's my wife? I am doing everything I'm supposed to do." And the cops confirm it. They tell him, "I'm sorry, but your wife is dead." And Darren is devastated. He's heartbroken. His wife is dead and he doesn't know what happened. The cops don't know. They just know that her body is on the ground with multiple stab wounds. Now, Darren is actually helpful to the police because he had access to Latrice's phone records. Yo, that's some dangerous shit. You out here fucking around on your husband, sending text messages and calls and shit, and your husband got access to your phone records? Ain't no way. Ain't no way. You, ooh, ooh, couldn't be me. Now, her phone had been destroyed because the night that Robert attacked her, it had rained. So he made sure to put her phone outside in the water where it wouldn't be able to, be recovered. So Darren goes online and he pulls up Latrice's call log and he sees a number that she dialed right after him. And he sees this was the last person that she talked to. So he calls the number and he hears a male voice answer and he introduces himself. And he's like, "Hey, this is Darren Curtis. I'm Latrice's husband. Who am I speaking with?" And Steven introduces himself and tells him who he is. And, Steven's like, "Yeah, Latrice and I was kind of casually seeing each other." Like, can you imagine getting a phone call from your side chick's husband saying, "Hey, I'm her husband. I just want to know when was the last time you talked to her." Or, "I'm her husband. I just need to know what time she left you last night." Like, that is some crazy shit. The level of patience that this man had and calmness because this dude is Army National Guard on top of that. I would be shooketh to the core. But nonetheless, Darren is very composed. He and Stephen talked, and Stephen had no clue that Latrice was missing. Like, Darren had to tell Stephen, like, Latrice is dead. So they end their conversation, and Darren goes to the police station to answer some questions. And while that's going on, the medical examiners conduct an autopsy. So the autopsy was released that Friday, and it confirmed that Latrice had over 40 stab wounds. She also had injuries to her hands. She had two broken nails, and at the time of the discovery of her body, they had put like these brown paper bags over her hands to preserve the evidence. They also noted how her jeans were unbuttoned and her fly was unzipped. So she hadn't been raped, but the police think it was more of like a humiliation kind of thing. um, what the medical examiners did, however, find was that condom that was inside of her. Remember when her and Steve had sex, that condom got stuck and he was mad because they couldn't get it out. Well, medical examiners did, and they confirmed that she had sex with Steven. So Darren gives them Steven's information and they know, okay, hey, we got to talk to him because he was one of the last people to see Latrice alive. Now, remember how I said that a sheriff had seen Robert outside around 1:36 in the morning in his little PT cruiser? Well, he hears about the investigation and he goes to the cops and tells them everything that he saw. Of course, he got the plate number, so he gives that to the police. They decide once they run the plate number and it comes back that it's Robert's car, that they're going to plant themselves outside of his house. So the cops find out that, Latrice was involved with Steven. They find out that Steven was the last person to see her. They find out about Robert and Steven living together. They were like, "Oh, we damn sure ain't going nowhere." So Darren tells the cops about how Latrice and Steven were messing around, and they decide they're going to talk to Steven first. And Steven wastes no time talking about what the fuck he had been experiencing. He starts telling them everything. He was like, "Yeah, I got this crazy ass roommate or landlord, and honestly, I think he had something to do with it." But the cops are asking him about his whereabouts, and luckily his alibi checked out because he was all the way at Velma's house. So they know he didn't do it, even though, it was kind of trifling that the two of them were fucking around, but at the same time, he was in the clear. So the cops asked Steven about Robert's PT Cruiser, and they're like, okay, well, maybe he did do it, but he was the one driving the car. And Steven clears that up real quick. He was like, "Nope. I've driven the car before, yeah, but I can promise y'all I wasn't driving it that night. I got my own whip. And the only time I've driven my roommate's car was when my tires got slashed and I had to get them replaced. And I think he had something to do with that." So finally, the cops get everything from Steven and then they go holla at Robert. He puts on the pastoral, concerned role, and the cops ask him, "Mr. Reeves, can you tell us where you were the night of the murder?" And he tells them, "Yeah, I was at a church function actually. I was there and I came straight home." And his sister Poochie, she's also questioned, and they tell her that her brother had said that he was at church. Baby, she had no loyalty to him. She tells the cops, "Well, he was at church, but he was home around that time that girl was here. I remember seeing her a few nights ago, and when they left, I know Rob left for a bit too. But it wasn't a church." And so the cops, they're like, this is interesting. Thank you, ma'am, for your information." So they start combing the scene. They're looking at stuff and they see that Stephen has a knife collection. And Stephen is very honest, he volunteers the information about his knife collection and the gun. And he tells them, "Look, I've been living in the basement of this apartment and I kept a gun because I ain't want to be around Robert like that. That nigga is off." He tells them all about the sexual advances that Robert had been making on him and how he got the gun to protect himself. He actually tells the investigators, a guy that says he's a man of God and then does that, who knows what he's capable of. And the cops agree. So they're combing over the house and they stumble upon his security system. They see that Robert has Brink's security home system. So they think, well, this is helpful. They end up calling the company and they speak with Charles Miller. And he pulls the call records from when Robert had called him to request to have his security system upgraded. So they give the police those tapes and they do the log of how the alarm had been enabled multiple times the night of the murder, and all of them were coming from Robert's code. Remember, Steve was at Velma's house, so his alarm didn't go off, but Robert disabled and enabled his alarm many times. Like, okay, yo, if you know that everybody got a separate code, and you're trying to put this shit on Steven, why not use Steven's code? If you don't want people to think it's you, why not use somebody else's code? Duh. So already the cops is just like, yeah, this shit looks real shady. Then they find out about Robert's history of sexual advances towards men and how he would get so angry when they would reject him. But Robert, he playing it cool. He cool as a cucumber. He's telling them, I didn't do this at all. What are y'all accusing me of? I'm telling y'all, my roommate Steve, my tenant, he's the one that had the gun. He also got a knife collection. But as they're talking to Robert, they're noticing he's got bruises all over his body. A Wake County Bureau of Investigations investigator is there, and he sees abrasions on the back of Robert's right hand and on his legs, and he tells the cops, this is something y'all should look at. And then, while they're looking, they find multiple phones that Robert owns. In addition to his cell phone, Robert also had a house phone and another cell phone. Nigga was Kevin Gates before Kevin Gates, okay? The second cell phone was what he called his fun phone. On February 1st, 2008, both Robert and Stephen go to the police station. Robert had like this gouge on his right hand and the abrasions and everything that they officially recorded. He said he got it from moving a desk from the basement to the first floor with Stephen. Now, the abrasions were pretty much brand new, and his sister Poochie, with her disloyal ass, was like, "Yeah, he and Steve did move a desk, but Robert didn't get hurt." And Steve corroborated what she said. He told the cops the same thing. He was like, "Yeah, we moved it with no problem. Nobody got hurt. I don't know what the fuck he talking about." All the while, Robert is really laying it on thick. Like, I'm telling y'all, it was Steve that did this. I knew that he was sleeping with her the night before. She wanted their relationship to be more serious. And Steve's got all those swords and knives. And I even found a gun under his pillow. And the cops find themselves asking, what the hell were you doing in his apartment that he pays rent for? Why are you going through his things? And why was your car at the scene of the crime? But those questions, yeah, Robert didn't have an answer for, but he seems to have an answer for everything else. Then he tried to say, well, you know what? Steve does have a key to my car. Like, I've let him use it before, so maybe that's why y'all saw it. He didn't really need my permission. I know he drove it last week because I remember seeing it. But Steve was like, nope. I've been driving my car for the last 2.5 weeks before, because I got my tires fixed. So try something else. At this point, the cops are like, all right, we've got enough to indict. So on February 2nd, 2008, Robert Lee Adam Reeves was arrested on suspicion of first degree murder. While Robert is sitting and waiting in jail, Latrese's family is preparing to bury her. Now her funeral, was held at God's City of Refuge in Carteret County, North Carolina, and she was buried at the Bayview Cemetery in Morehead City. She had like a slew of friends and family that came out to support and, say their last words and respects to her. And her husband spoke about his wife and he said, she was a daughter, she was a sister. I mean, she was somebody's niece, but most of all, she was my wife, she was my future. And he was hurting so bad. Naturally, all of them were. This was somebody that had touched everybody's life, no matter, what the situation was when she passed, no matter what was going on, she still was a beacon of light for a lot of people. Robert remained in jail with a $2 million bond, and on September 29th, 2009, his trial began. There were 7 men and 5 women, 2 black and 10 white on the jury. It just so happens that he went back in front of Superior Court Judge Donald Stevens. This time it was more for just a petty crime. He was given defense attorneys George Kelly and Melinda London. or Melissa London, excuse me. And of course, he pled not guilty. Various witnesses were brought to the stand for testimony. Five different witnesses testified to seeing both Latrice's car and Robert's car at the scene of the crime on the night of January 29th, 2008. That also included the testimony of State Trooper Isaac Cooper that saw Robert. So, according to the witness testimony, the cars were parked really close together, and then later on, they were parked on opposite sides of the highway. Robert tried to deny it and stated that his car wasn't there and that nobody else was driving it. But when Patrol Cooper ran the tags, it came back to Robert. The hazard lights were on and the driver's side window was halfway down, even though it was like raining outside. The door was unlocked and the keys were in the ignition, but nobody was in there. And then the state trooper also testifies that he saw Latrice's car not long after that on the opposite side of the highway with its hazard lights on as well. And there was blood in the interior of the car. The console had been broken, all of that. Now, my question is, if you saw this at 1 o'clock in the morning, why didn't you call it in? Even if you didn't have a body, why not call it in if you see visible blood in the car? Was it because there wasn't a lot of it? Was it because there wasn't a lot of blood? Like what made you say I'm not going to call this in? Investigators had extracted DNA samples from her car and they were able to tell that it came from two people. Most of it was from Latrice, and Robert was considered a possible contributor. So the trial is going on. Y'all, every time I look at this trial, at the videos, and I see this little motherfucker, he just reminded me of like a little gecko. Like he just looks so weird. Anyway, so, prosecution, they're doing their job. They're laying out their case. They're telling the jury, despite the wrongdoing the defense is trying to use with Latrice, the defendant's roommate, Stephen, Latrice was the victim, and she just happened to be an obstacle in Robert's path towards his sexual advantage on Stephen. The same pattern about approaching young men started years earlier and ended with the death of what he viewed as an obstacle to that, Latrice Curtis. Wake County Assistant District Attorney Jennifer Lindo tells the jury Stephen was not the first person Robert made sexual advances on. Oh, she was on her job, baby. She brought forth two other male witnesses who could testify to their encounters with Robert: LaQuentin Ford and John Ross. LaQuentin Ford was working at a kiosk in South Point Mall in 2005 when Robert approached him and saw that he was stranded. He offered him a ride home, and LaQuentin lived like 15 to 20 miles away, which took like forever on the city bus. So, of course, he accepted Robert's offer. And when Robert took him home, they started talking about gay sex, or rather, Robert started talking about it. And just like Robert did with Steven, he asks LaQuentin, like, hey, how much do you pay for your rent? And LaQuentin tells him, oh, I pay $100 a month. Where I stay is kind of like, bad. And so Rob tells him, well, you can stay with me for free if you want. Now, initially, LaQuentin turned it down. But at some point, Robert showed him where he lived. And, LaQuentin was like, okay, it's kind of a nice layout. And on top of that, he was having issues with his own situation. So he decided, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to go ahead and live with Robert. So he moves in with him. It starts out cool, but when Robert goes out of town one day, he tells LaQuentin, hey, I need you to house sit, take care of the dog. And LaQuentin is like, sure, cool, no problem. Now, it's not like, him and Robert are fucking. So he's cool with it because he's like, all right, all I got to do is just house sit. LaQuentin was house sitting and he invited his girlfriend to the house and they were fucking everywhere. So I guess LaQuentin thought he was being smart. Like he would take the condoms that they used and put them in a grocery bag and he ended up hanging it up on the doorknob outside of his bedroom door. So when Robert came home and he saw that, he was like, yo, did you have somebody in my house? And Quentin's like, huh? What you talking about? I ain't had nobody in the house. And Robert was mad, okay? Baby, he told him, well, if you ain't had nobody here, then what the hell is with these condoms in the bag? But LaQuentin just kind of like dismissed it like it was no big deal. And I'm just like, okay, that should have been a red flag. Like this nigga's going through your trash. Okay. So Robert, he's upset about it, but eventually he calms down. And a couple of nights later, Robert goes to LaQuentin and starts talking to him about being an escort and how he thinks he would love it, making all this money. And, LaQuentin's girlfriend, she coming over and she's kind of noticing some stuff. And she's like, baby, you gotta get up out of here. He's weird. And LaQuentin, he's kind of feeling uncomfortable too, and he agrees, but he don't have anywhere to go because he's already moved out of his old place. So he tries to talk to Robert, and he's like, "Bruh, hey, I don't get down like that. I ain't trying to be fucking with no nigga." So Robert, he hears him, and he's like, "Okay," So LaQuentin leaves to go to work, and Robert's still in his feelings. So he's like, "Oh, word? So you don't want to fuck me? Well, I guess I'm gonna have to show you then." Like a little bitch. He calls the cops and has them go to the mall where LaQuentin works, and they arrest him and charge him with property damage. Yes, Robert fucked up his own house and blamed it on LaQuentin. Now, of course, the charges are later dropped, but the damage had already been done at this point. Like, you got this man in the system. Okay, so y'all want to hear something real crazy about LaQuentin that I found out after the trial? Another news article popped up on him. I found out that in 2019, LaQuentin was dating this woman named Victoria St. Hilaire. She was 28 years old at that time. They had been dating off and on, and she had ended up getting a protective order against LaQuentin for domestic violence. But he didn't abide by the order, and he ended up shooting and killing her before he turned the gun on himself and committed suicide. Like, I wonder if she was the same one that he was with when he was living with Robert. But, like, damn, that's such a sad way to go out. Like, it's crazy that, all those years later after that happened, but sorry. Okay, back to the trial. So, John Ross is the next one to get up on the stand, and he testifies that he was working as an installation technician for Brink Security Systems when he came to Robert's house in October of 2007. He gets there at like 8 o'clock that morning, and Stephen had already left for the day. When he got there, he noticed that Robert was like initially in a suit, but after Stephen left, Robert was like, I'm gonna make myself a little bit more comfortable. And the next thing you know, he comes in there with like this sleeveless undershirt and a pair of shorts, and he starts talking to this complete stranger about sex. And he tells John, you got some good features. You can make a lot of money being a male escort. Y'all. Then he takes it a step further. And he's like, how big is your dick? Like, you like to have your dick sucked? John was like, okay, time to go. I gotta get the fuck up out of here. He tries to let Robert down easy, and he's trying to like shrug it off or whatever. And as he's leaving, Robert literally grabs his arm and is on some, no, what's the hurry? Stay. He's trying to pull him towards the bathroom, and he's telling him, look, just close your eyes and you won't know. Just let me do what I gotta do, and I'll give you some money for it, and you can go. John is literally trying to break free from his grip, and he finally manages to break free, and he's like, "You know what? Fuck this paperwork." He left everything there and was out. Okay? So Robert's attorneys, they're hearing this. Y'all, they didn't even bother to do an opening damn statement. Like, that is insane. They was just sitting there like, "Well, shit, we ain't got shit to say on that." Now, it's not to say that they didn't have any witnesses of their own. One of Robert's pastoral friends, Bless Jones, testified. So he's done ministry with Robert for about 3 years, and he's trying to refute everything that is being told. He testifies how Robert is an awesome man of God. He knows the Bible, he knows people, he's a very classy gentleman. It's not his character, it's just not him. He tells the jury, I really think he was set up. Do you though? Because the only thing he set up was an alarm system to watch his roommate come and go. The only thing he set up was ways for him to get close to his roommate and try to do some sneak shit. So Earl Platt gets on the stand and he tells the jury how much of a gifted preacher Robert was and how he had a true talent for communicating with people and how he really hoped that, Robert would do the right thing and move past the sexual accusations that he had known of. And I'm just sitting there like, what the fuck? What brand of weed are y'all smoking? What Kool-Aid are y'all drinking? Now, the prosecution also discussed how about 9 months after he was arrested, they discovered a knife in the backseat of Robert's car that they had not seen before. Now, the knife didn't fully have Robert's blood on it, and they never actually tested it. So, a lot of the stuff honestly was circumstantial evidence in this case. Like, there was a DNA sample that was taken from underneath Latrese's fingernails, and it didn't match Roberts. His other attorney, Miss London, pointed that out. She argued that's indisputable. Latrice scratched and broke her nails on somebody, but it was not Mr. Reeves. There is simply not enough evidence to link our client to this crime scene. Scientific evidence weighs against it. On top of that, the defense kind of cross examined the witnesses about the probability of the DNA being transferred from Robert's house because Latrice was there before she died. But the North Carolina State Bureau of Investigation for forensics analyst Michelle Hannon, she was like, nah, the only way that her DNA got on the steering wheel was by Robert touching it because she was not around Robert, she was around Stephen. There was a separate entrance. She never interacted with Robert. Kimberly Parker, she ends up testifying about the strange phone call that she got the night that Latrice disappeared. Even Steven testified about how he was weirded out by Robert. Robert's defense attorney, George Kelly, he's trying to argue that even with all the evidence that you hear about, it's all circumstantial. They don't have direct evidence of the defendant's guilt. Robert's maintaining his innocence, all of that. So the trial lasted about 10 days, and on October 9th, 2009, a jury found Robert Lee Adams Reeves guilty of the murder of Latrice Curtis. Robert was facing a death sentence because of the first degree murder trial. He was actually sentenced the same day for first degree murder and sent to Roanoke River Correctional Institute. While he was there, he ended up getting his sentence commuted to life in prison instead of the death sentence. But it basically served it. I guess it kind of saved his life because homie was about to get that good old chemical cocktail. So, like most people after their sentencing, Robert ends up filing an appeal and he fires both of his attorneys. He decided, you know what? I'm going to defend myself on this first degree murder charge. And that was the dumbest shit he could have done. Like, his attorneys was like, this is one stupid motherfucker. But what else could they do? So once he was defending himself, he claims that any probative value of the Rule 404 testimony of LaQuentin Ford and John Ross were substantially outweighed by the danger of unfair prejudice, specifically due to his history with the young men. He also argues that the pertinent question with regard to John Ross's testimony is not whether evidence of sexual orientation was properly admitted, rather whether the evidence was properly admitted to, regardless of, the gender or sexual orientation of Robert or John Ross. So he ends up filing a motion to dismiss, saying that the court denied his motion to dismiss because the state failed to offer substantial evidence that he was the perpetrator of the crime. And the courts was like, nope, we strongly disagree. And so his conviction stood, of course. Now, I don't know if it had anything to do with his sexual orientation, but Robert ended up getting moved from Roanoke to Nash Correctional Institution, and he was officially admitted into the prison October 9th, 2009. Now, okay, here's my thing. With him being admitted into this prison and him and his sexual orientation, a lot of people, would think, okay, you would be kind of afraid that, oh shit, I'm going to be getting raped. But honestly, y'all, this is going to sound so fucked up, but I feel like this motherfucker would have liked it because, you, I'm trying to be good. Anyway, okay, so he had like 30 fucking infractions, like 30. And I'm talking about pretty much from the time he got into prison, he started getting infractions. They started in January of 2010 until September 2023, which was the most recent that I saw. He's got infractions from disobeying orders, fighting with weapons, weapon possession, no threat contraband, fighting with a weapon, sexual acts, of course. Like, it's crazy that he's got all of this. Robert is now 59 years old and at Nash Correctional Institute. He will be serving the rest of his life there. Since his sentencing, everyone has continued to flourish in their lives. Steven, I don't know if he actually graduated from North Carolina Central, but I do know that he's kind of private on social media. I couldn't really find much. Like, most people be posting all day and night, but I couldn't really see anything on him. Darren, he went on with his life as well. After everything kind of died down and ended, he met a woman named Rhonda and they got married in April of 2010. Some people think, oh, well, he moved on quick, but honestly, I just kind of look at it like, what else was he supposed to do? His wife is gone. And unfortunately, she had had an affair during their marriage. It's not like he can bring her back. And as fast as he got married the first time, that might be, just his thing. He might be the type that falls quickly. So since then, they've been married. He has a son and a daughter, and he still resides in North Carolina. All of Latrice's siblings are thriving and, they have their own kids and everything. And as for Willie Mae Thorpe, aka Poochie, she kind of went off the grid. Like I was definitely looking for her because, like I said, that ain't a common name, child. I was looking for her because I wanted me a good old soul food plate, baby. Just give me some collards, some cornbread, some potato salad, some good old fried chicken. Because with a name like that, I know she can burn. Anywho, okay, so it is now time for fair or foul, where we look at the results of the case and the sentencing to determine if we think it is just that, fair or foul. And on this one, I honestly have to say fair. I think that Robert had some serious issues. The fact that this man focused solely on Latrice and decided to take out his anger and his frustration on her and seeing her as the obstacle. And I'm like, why? Like, you knew you had already, your advances to this man had been turned down. He told you flat out, like, motherfucker, I don't want you. I'm never gonna want you, but you couldn't handle rejection well. That's what it was. You knew that your homosexual fantasies and cravings and urges got the better of you. And you hit on multiple people. Steven wasn't the first one that you tried it with. You tried to fuck somebody that you met at the mall. You tried to fuck the installation guy from the security company. Like, come on, why not try to meet an actual homosexual man online or something like that if you really wanted that? I know they had what was that fucking website back then? Backpage, I think is what it's called. I know they had Backpage back then. Why not try to do some shit like that? You got a problem. Instead of just letting it go or maybe, going to get a new target, you were so focused on Steven. Like, what was it that just made you say, I gotta have him? Because you had already tried it with other men. When he was living with you, you was trying to fuck the installation dude. Like, you literally tried to drag him to your bathroom, my nigga. The man went and got a fucking gun because he didn't know what you were capable of. And I'm just like, why kill Latrice? Why kill her? She wasn't even the only girl that Steven was fucking. You knew that he was with Velma because you slashed her tires and even Warren's. But yet you didn't go after either of them. You didn't try to kill them. You knew that he was fucking with other girls, but yet you didn't go after them. So why was it Latrice? Because she was the one that came to the house? Because I don't understand. Like, what was the reason?
Reason.
What was the reason?
I had a reason.
What was the
I had a
reason?
reason.
What was the reason?
I just explained the reason.
What was the reason, bitch?
I don't need to explain myself to you. And
What was the reason?
Honestly, now that I think about it, I really wish the death sentence had been carried out because I feel like, that pain would be sufficient for him. Get him a good old cocktail, get him a good old chemical cocktail to take his ass right the fuck up on out of here permanently. But, obviously the laws have changed. I honestly think that, you getting exactly what the fuck you wanted. You wanted to be with a man so bad that you killed for it. And well, now you're gonna have several motherfucking men. Now you getting bent the fuck over every day and night from a plethora of men while you were in prison. So congrats. I don't know. Like maybe that's what you wanted. I don't know. But I hope that it is the most unpleasant experience. Like, I hope that you are dealing with so much pain. But, like I said, with somebody this sick and twisted, you, ugh, it just irks me. Latrice has been gone for over a decade now, and her family will never be able to hear her voice again. They'll never be able to see her laugh again or smile. And normally morally, I will say it's fucked up that, she put herself in a situation where she was involved with somebody else and was having an affair on her husband because, she's in a situation where she lost her life because of an affair with a man who, even though he didn't necessarily ask for the shit or see the shit coming, he got a crazy ass landlord that decided to make her the target. He wanted to eliminate the problem, and unfortunately, she was the problem for him. So ultimately, I know it's really fucked up that, that occurred, and God can only imagine how her family must have felt when they found out that she was killed behind such a senseless reason, that she was killed behind a man that wasn't her husband, a man that was just a jump off, for lack of better words, a man that she had these feelings for, especially finding out everything, as the trial went on, finding out that, okay, our child was, in love with another man, or our child was infatuated with another man. Because let's keep it a man, she was 21 years old. And at 21 years old, is it really infatuation? Is it really love? You can't really know for sure. I think it was infatuation, because especially when you getting dick down good, you don't know how to act. You know what I'm saying? And I think that it was more so infatuation and something new when, all of this happened. And that's why she felt the way that she did. But nonetheless, it's still hard for her family to have to deal with. It's still something that just you don't want to hear, especially when your child isn't there to defend themselves. So it's a lot to take in. I wonder if Steve has any remorse when he's thinking about what happened, because although he wasn't married to Latrice and, he didn't have any loyalty or owe any loyalty to Latrice's husband, at the same time, he knew that she was married. And yet, she did give him the whole false pretense and say that they were separated. But even in that same aspect, I'm looking at it like, okay, sir, you claim to have had a girlfriend, but you stepped out on her with so many women, which makes you just as guilty. And, while you are, using protection with Latrice, were you using protection with the other girls? Like, how did you feel knowing that, because of your relationship with her, it ultimately cost her her life? Though it's not your fault because you didn't yourself kill her. Like, I will never say that it's on him directly because, again, he didn't do it. But what other choice did you have? You know, why cheat on your girl at all? Why not either be faithful to Velma or just be single so that you could do your thing? It's just a lot of questions that I'm thinking about right now. It's a lot of things that really have me sitting back like, yo, this could have been handled differently. Like, I, both parties, played a part in it. Whew, I told y'all the minute I started reading this, y'all would be like, what in the entire fuck? It's so much, y'all. I promise. I'm whew, this was a lot. All right. That is all for this week's episode of The Infamous Ones, a true crime podcast. You can follow the show on the various streams on TikTok and Instagram. It's Infamous One Podcast, and that's a number one, by the way, not spelled out. And you can leave a review there. On X, it's Infamous One Pod, where you can also leave a review. On Facebook, you can send a friend request to the page The Infamous Ones or join the private discussion group, The Infamous Ones Discussion Group. Answer the questions because I will decline your ass entry if you don't. And once you join the group, make sure that you RSVP for the Facebook Live episode that's coming in August next month. Yes. The show streams on multiple streaming services like Odyssey, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and so on and so on. So please leave a review. It only takes a few seconds. These reviews matter. On a side note, so for those of you that are podcasters, y'all know Spotify switched over to Riverside. Riverside, I don't know if I can get with Riverside. I may have to, get like a new main streaming service because Riverside, I'm not feeling it. They use Riverside for the podcasting episodes, and it's just a little bit too much for me. But I'll keep y'all updated on that as we go. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into some reviews. I do have a few older reviews that I didn't get to read yet, nothing new. So y'all please leave a review. Y'all got me begging for reviews like Tyrese begging for, well, anything that gives him the spotlight. Okay, so let's get into some reviews. This one comes from Apple Podcasts and it's from Ms. Gemini 81 Baby. It's captioned, Love this podcast. I would first like to say, Miss K, please continue to make more episodes. I've heard a lot of different true crime podcasts. This show is the best. You bring so much passion with everything you share. You're always on point and very detailed. Some are so sad and others are beyond evil, but we need to hear them. You remind us that you have been through things, so it makes it easy to connect with you. OMG, you go in on some of these killers, but always speak the truth. I pray that God gives you the strength to keep doing this. This is what you're supposed to be doing. Thank you. I so appreciate that, Miss Gemini 81 Baby. Thank you for leaving a review. Please tell your people to leave one too. I'm definitely loving what I do. You're right. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. I love it, love it, love it. All right. Let's see. We got another one here that is from Apple Podcasts as well. And it is from SC Chemist. It says, New fan. I found you through the Sisters Who Kill group, and I have absolutely found a new podcast that I can look forward to. I love your approach to storytelling with well placed jokes that never come off insensitive to the victims. Oh, appreciate it, boo boo. So I guess I know what you do for a living, chemist. Congrats on that. All right, y'all. So if you want to support the show, or if you're feeling the spirit, meaning that that liquor that we've been sipping on tonight, again, it's brought to you by Double XL Guava. Click the link at the bottom of the screen from whatever app you're listening to this episode on. Hit listener support to subscribe. Subscriptions start at $4.99, I think. It gives you access to stuff that the listeners don't get from behind the scenes, all of that great stuff. You can also donate via Cash App at $infamous one pod. That's $INFAMOUSONEPOD. And of course, shout out to my popcorn gang and my candy squad that stay donating. I've had a few people inbox me and ask me about, how to donate to the show. So again, Cash App $INFAMOUSONEPOD. If you have a case you want to hear more on that you feel has been ignored in the Black community, if you want to inquire about ad space, or if you want to leave a review, sending an email to infamous1pod@gmail.com. That's INFAMOUSONEPOD@gmail.com. Once again, people, please share, share, share. Share this podcast, okay? Until then, y'all know what it is. I'm your girl Kay. Thank you for tuning in, and I will see y'all next week with a new episode. Peace.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Infamous Ones, a true crime podcast hosted by Kay. Be sure to like and comment on your favorite podcast platform and subscribe so that you never miss an episode.